other questions on his presentation? I now am at number 9, approval of the minutes of the July 12th, 2021 board meeting. Ms. Huddle.
Ms. Hammond, I move that we approve the minutes of the July 12th, 2021 board meeting.
And is there a second? And Ms. Hines seconds. Any discussion on that? We'll vote. And there are, Nikki, so it is 6. Oh, you abstained because you missed that. I'm sorry. 5 with 1 abstention. Thank you. And with that, we are at public participation. And I think we have 2 students, so we always like to have them first because they like to go home and they don't have to study tonight. That's right. You can go home and watch TV. Sarah Willett. Am I saying that right? Welcome.
Hello, board members and Dr. Ross. My name is Sarah Wilt, and I'm a rising 7th grader at Chapin Middle School. You have all heard it. The rising COVID numbers in our state and in our country, the rising deaths, the rising hospitalizations, and the rising number of people in the ICU. However, there is one thing that is decreasing: the age of the people being hospitalized. I'm concerned that you truly have no idea the impact that COVID will have on our schools without any precautions. You removed the mask mandate way too soon. I think you shouldn't have removed it at all, but my opinion as a student hasn't mattered to you. I know I am bringing this to your attention way too late, but I'm scared for my life this school year. The Delta variant affects the vaccinated and unvaccinated, therefore masks are my last line of protection. My mask protects me, but I have no control over others. I have seen the images of children on their deathbeds due to COVID. As a school board, it is your responsibility to protect our lives. If you think that we are always 6 feet away from one another, that's not correct. Just try having to navigate Chapin Intermediate C Hall during class change. It is scary the number of people who don't wear a mask, the thing that saves lives daily. I am vaccinated, but for many of my friends and children who are too young to get vaccinated, I'm terrified for their life. But if you take nothing away from me today, please hear this warning. Children will be bullied for wearing masks, and the bullying cases that you don't hear about will be the ones where someone ends up hurting themselves. Please also consider that when someone tests positive, there are things you could have done to prevent them from testing positive and missing instruction. Allow me to end with this statement. Dr. Ross, you have asked how are the children? Well, let me tell you how I am. I'm scared for mine and others' lives. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mallory Green.
I'm a shorty, so just bear with me for a sec. Hello, my name is Mallory Green. I'm a rising 7th grader at Chapin Middle School. This school board has become too politically motivated during this pandemic. They've decided to listen to the louder parents over the medical professionals and the quieter majority. Yes, we all have different views and values, and yes, you may disagree with what I'm saying, but we should be thinking about the values that everyone have. That the most important thing is protecting what we love, and I believe that most of us love the children. So why are we not doing our best to protect them when there are measures we can take that can combat the thing that we must protect each other from? We can no longer enforce safety rules, so we have to follow them of our own merit to help others. Dr. Ross's motto has been, "How are the children?" While most of the children are living in ignorance of the full scope of the situation that we have been in since March of last year, it's unfair that we are allowing kids who aren't even eligible to get the vaccine to go around not following the protocols given to them by professionals. We have to think of egoistic altruism, which basically means we can't help ourselves unless we help the world. And what will help the world is at least educating people why and how they should be protecting themselves and others. I would like to share a personal story about how the pandemic took away one of the people I love the most. My dad had been scheduled to receive a new defibrillator at the end of May 2020, but due to the pandemic, it kept getting pushed back. On December 3rd, 2020, He was out on a run and his heart stopped. If people could have stayed inside for 2 weeks at the beginning of March, if they could have stayed safe for 2 weeks, he might have been able to get that defibrillator and I might still have my dad. I know it's hard for some people to follow protocols, but the pandemic will just go on longer if we don't. We can't have normal unless we go without it for a bit. Please allow teachers to at least encourage or teach their students to follow safety protocols. Thank you for your time and consideration. Have a wonderful rest of your night.
Thank you. Zoe Warren.
Greetings. My name is Zoe Warren. I'm a father of 3. I live in Lexington County. I'm a documentary and narrative filmmaker, a freelance video producer, and a journalist. And I've been producing commercial, documentary, and news content since 2009. I've worked in local news as a camera operator, regional news as a reporter. I'm currently an editor-at-large for the Standard SC. I'm the owner of Pasteur Productions, and I host a weekly show. It's distributed by the New American Magazine, addressing issues related to the Second Amendment. My family and I are also missionaries to Pakistan and the Philippines, and I'm currently serving as the Lexington County Republican Party's 3rd Vice Chair. I'm not speaking for the 3rd Vice Chair or Lexington County today. This is for me and my family. I want to thank you all, Chairwoman, Vice Chairman, Lexington Richland 5 School Board, parents, teachers, residents of the district, United Parents of South Carolina Midlands, and Alan Wright for the invitation and the opportunity to share some information related to a pedagogy called critical race theory that has our nation, our state, and counties in an uproar. I was sent some materials to look over, and in those materials I saw some things that were concerning, and they are being used in our districts. So in my presentation, I endeavor to resolve generally 3 questions. What is critical race theory? How is it being applied in K-12 schools, despite legislation forbidding it? And how should we respond? I'm going to try to be as fast as I can. I know I have a very short amount of time. What is critical race theory? Dr. Peter McLaren, who's known as one of the leading architects of critical pedagogy, defines critical race theory as much more than a program of study or a classroom text or a course syllabus. Rather, it represents the introduction to a particular form of life. That's why it seems like an idea, and it's hard to grab a hold of. I'm going to refer to critical race theory as CRT for the rest of the presentation. CRT is more than an idea. It's a form of educational warfare. And sometimes it's in stealth. And it's under what seems to be a helpful means of teaching history, the history of race relations in America. But it's meant to wash our children in a form of racial hatred. And I want to agree with Dr. Ross that we need to have something in common to be a community. And I think our ethos, the cultural ethos, is something we should have in common. We should be able to say the same things and have the same kind of values as a country. And I think that it starts with our students. If we don't teach them right, then they're going to absolutely go the wrong way. Dr. Nicholas Hartleb, who's an associate professor of education studies at Berea, published an important study on CRT in 2009. He's a proponent of CRT, and he titled his presentation, Critical Race Theory, an examination of its past, present, and future implications. In it, he evaluated the current body of research conducted on CRT data, and he found that CRT is broken down most succinctly in 5 major components, 5 tenets. The notion that racism is ordinary.
I'm so sorry.
Okay,
And that's the 3 minutes.
that's the 30-minute mark, okay, understood.
But we thank you.
Absolutely.
You want to give me that, though, so we'll have that, the rest of your speech?
Absolutely, I'll give you a copy.
You sure? Thank you. Elizabeth Hux. I did not, I'll take that as my fault. I did not read that when the students were doing it, but there's 3 minutes is the limit. So, and he will put up a little yellow sign when you have a minute left.
Fast 3 minutes. Okay, my name is Elizabeth. I have 3 children that attend school here in Lexington, Richland 5. I'm speaking to you today as a representative of not only my family, but the families across this district, across the country, who are demanding to be heard. Children have an incredibly minuscule risk of contracting COVID-19 and an even smaller one of spreading it to others. They have over 99% survivability rate. How many of our children have caught the cold or the flu over their lifetimes? What did the doctor always tell us before this mess? If it's bacterial, they get an antibiotic. If it's viral, send them home, and they have Advil and Tylenol. Up until now, when I took my kid to the doctor with a runny nose and a sore throat, it's either COVID or not COVID. The same with the testing. Per the FDA and the CDC's own acknowledgement, no one has ever isolated the SARS-CoV-2 virus, meaning if you don't have an actual virus to test people against, how can you know that that's what they have? The creator of the test himself has stated repeatedly that you cannot quantitate a viral load on a PCR instrument. Some have said it would be like attempting to measure the amount of jet fuel in a spaceship by using a thermometer. It's been a lie. This is settled science and is simply not up for debate anymore. As parents, it is our job to protect our children from harm, from hurt, and from heartbreak, to guide them and to nurture them, to teach them right from wrong. But if we do not stand up right now and say no to the mandating of things upon our children, it will only become more and more of a slippery slope into losing control entirely. If we allow the government to attempt to decide what is best for our children, then we have already lost. They will win by our silence and our compliance. Continuing down this detrimental path is 100% unequivocally unacceptable. We cannot allow our elected officials to, for example, in Colombia, solely require children under 12 to be forced to wear them and no one else will. This is child abuse in no uncertain terms, and I say right now to anyone anywhere who wants to inflict this on the most innocent members of our society, we will not allow it. We will not comply with any and all unconstitutional mandates from spineless politicians that will force our children to mask now or vaccinated later. In Mark chapter 5, Jesus told a man whose 12-year-old daughter had just passed away to be not afraid and to only believe. I'm sure this man was feeling some type of way. He was only human, and his beloved daughter had just died. But he looked to Jesus and he believed. He did not look to doctors or experts or Anthony Fauci. He looked to Jesus. And what happened next? Jesus said, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." And she did. She lived. She was protected even beyond death. So as for me and mine, when it comes to this virus or anything else that may bring a sense of fear into our beings, we will continue to put our faith and belief in the protection of our children. I am putting school boards here on notice across the country right now that parents in our communities and across the nation are done. We gave a year to figure it out, and it wasn't figured out. This last year, we will not be forced to choose between pulling our kids from their schools that they know and love and their teachers and their home away from homes, or forced to mask and vaccinate them only to be indoctrinated by lunatics who want to push agendas on the most vulnerable and innocent of our society, our children. This is not a choice we will make. We the people are the ones who pay the salaries, the ones whose tax dollars go into supporting this school district, and it is our children who attend these schools. We are not afraid anymore, and if you attempt to shut us down or silence our voices, going along with rules for thee but not for me mentality, there will be a thunderous war of righteous anger pouring out from the very fabric of this nation, from the families of whom you are coming against. So understand tonight that this board will not only make the correct decision to abide by Governor McMaster's rulings and say no to
Your
mask
time is
mandates,
up.
or we will remove you
I'm
from your
sorry.
positions and find someone else that will.
Thank you. I know we hate that little buzzer, but I have to be fair. Roger Nelson.
Good evening. My name is Roger Nelson. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I was here last May, and we spoke then. Unfortunately, I don't come prepared and generally don't know what I'm going to say until I get up here. We did the right thing last May. We got masks by choice, which is what we're looking for. I think a lot of people are scared with what happened with the city of Columbia and what they're trying to do there. And I just want to make sure that we stay with the right decision that we have. That if you want to wear a mask, wear it, that's fine, but we're not going to force that onto anybody. So I don't want to talk about that. I asked my daughter, who's a rising third grader at Nursery Road, I said, what do you want me to tell the board? You know, what do you want your school year to look like this year? She goes, Daddy, I just want it to be normal. I just want it to be back to normal. I want to be able to go to recess. I don't want to wear a mask. I want to be able to just spend time with my friends. She said, Daddy, I want you to be able to come see me at school. Now, sitting here, I got the email from Nursery Road looking at reentry plans, meeting the teachers, first day of school. My youngest, he's going to kindergarten. It's his first day. He's so excited. But I come to find out that we're not going to be able to walk my child into his classroom on the first day of school. Look, there's no retry for that. We don't get to try it again in first grade. It's not the same thing. You only do that once. We've got to get back to normalcy. We cannot let fear-mongering, scare tactics from media, government, administration, people talking all kinds of nonsense. This here, District 5, you guys, show us leadership. You say every choice is a great choice. Make sure that that choice is the great choice. Show us your leadership. Make the right decisions. take this district as a shining example in all the state of South Carolina and the United States, right back where we should be, which is normal. It's a respiratory disease. It's not going away. We can't shut everything down. We can't run away. We can't hide. We can't bully. We can't coerce. We can't force people to do things. It's America. We need to be normal. We need to go right back to where we were. 2019, normal. That's what I'm looking for. And I think that's what a lot of parents in this district are looking for. I know that's what my kids are looking for. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Todd Grosh.
Good evening. How are the children? I'm here to say the children are not well. You have a state superintendent, Molly Spearman. I sent everybody an email. I showed you the video telling whoever that gentleman was, I don't know who he was, but basically telling the children to go ahead and use peer pressure to get the shots, to get the vaccine, the experimental vaccine. Then you have a football coach in D5 going ahead and separating vaxxed and unvaxxed children, and then telling the unvaxxed children that they need to go ahead and basically do what's best for them. Paraphrasing. That's not good. What other teachers, what other schools, what other high school students or coaches are going ahead and using that type of intimidation? Now, you showed this beautiful slide up there. I hear it's orange. They're going back to school as orange, if I heard that correctly, right? Well, the PCR test is set at 35 to 40 cycles. That means there are tons of malpositive, false positives, tons. The CDC admitted this. Also, the PCR test cannot tell the difference between influenza, COVID-19, and the Delta variant. I spoke to DHEC today. The Delta variant has to be diagnosed separately. It's a separate test. They take a small portion from each area in South Carolina and send it to CDC. And they go ahead and they decide, based on that test, what the numbers are, and it gets sent back. So where is this Delta variant that everybody's talking about that's an emergency? Oh my God, the sky's falling. It's ridiculous. This is news media. This is fear-mongering. Masks do not work. A virus is 0.1 micron. N95 mask can stop 3 microns. It doesn't take a rocket scientist. It's like trying to stop a mosquito with a chain link fence. This is nonsense. It's fear-mongering. Then your back to school plan showed quarantine. So if you're vaxxed and you test or you take the other test, the protein test, basically saying that you had COVID, you don't have to quarantine. But if you didn't take the vaccine, you have to quarantine. Do you have any idea that a very high percentage of people that right now are showing COVID-19 are double vaccinated, fully vaccinated? That is from DHEC. Do you understand that? So you can't go ahead and segregate and you can't discriminate based on those rules. The information you guys are getting is nonsense. You need to do your own research. You need to figure this out. This cannot go on. The fear-mongering cannot go on. Find the truth. 12,000 deaths in the United States currently on the VAERS CDC website for double vaccinated individuals. This is ridiculous. It needs to stop.
Time is up. Thank you. Renee Kelly.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity for me to speak today. I just wanted to say that one of the biggest tragedies here is the impact of the mitigation efforts on our children. With the availability of vaccines, the effect of the virus on those under 65 is extremely low, and for children it's even lower. Masking children has led to dramatically increased visits to the emergency department for mental health issues, attempted suicide or self-harm, uncontrollable anxiety and panic attacks, related to feelings of isolation, not being able to become, having a normal type life or, activity at school. It's hindering our children's emotional social and physical development. With masking, they can't learn how to read people's faces or recognize facial expression or the meanings. Covered mouths add to muffled speech, slowing the development of linguistic skills, and the hearing impaired can't read lips. The social pressure to report or shame friends who violate mask rules are on social media, to teachers, to the government in itself. Research on the effectiveness of masks is lacking. There is no controlled study. You don't have a group that has no mask completely or some that have masking. The best we can do is to compare two different groups, Florida, New York. Essentially, there has been no difference in the outbreak between those two states. Life is full of risks. We need to be able to weigh those risks and benefits and make decisions for ourselves. Let the parents decide whether or not children will be wearing masks. We do not need mask mandates. Thank you.
Thank you. Mandy Collins. Okay, you want to give him your time? Look there. There are nice people in the world.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Okay, so CRT is broken down most succinctly in 5 major components or 5 tenets. The notion that racism is ordinary and not aberrational, interest convergence, the social construction of race, counter storytelling, and the notion that whites have actually been the beneficiaries of all civil rights legislation. Now, I'm not going to unpack every tenet. I just want to touch on the first 2 and the 4th in order to help us all quickly understand how it relates to the second question and that I wanted to address was how is it being applied in K-12 schools despite legislation forbidding it. The notion that racism is ordinary and not aberrational begins with a fallacy, and that fallacy is that the majority culture in America is racist, maintains elitist control, and that whites, the majority culture, maintain their power and stranglehold on society, a nefarious plot, and it's called systemic racism. That majority culture achieves this by determining the overall ethos of the culture and promoting certain notions like colorblindness and meritocracy. CRT proponents believe that colorblindness and meritocratic rhetoric allow whites to feel consciously irresponsible for the hardships people of color face and encounter. They conclude that racism and white supremacy are the status quo, and that white oppressors exploit black and brown oppressed people by using the values of colorblindness and meritocracy to claim that they're neutral. So colorblindness is no longer an American value in the world of CRT proponents. Neither is meritocracy, which allows whites to have a clear conscience as they use their advantage to outperform the oppressed. Every good work and community service of whites is also held in disdain as they contend that the powerful maintain power and only relinquish portions of it when they have nothing to lose. Furthermore, they receive platitudes and compliments when they do choose to dole out portions of their power to the lesser people of color. The first tenet is foundational to the assumption that there is a need for racial equity and that public schools can be used as a social equalizer through casting the contribution of whites to our nation's redemptive history as evil, the fruit of white supremacist oppression of minorities, completely disregarding the coalition of white Americans who resisted the majority vote trespasses of minority rights over the years, whose founding philosophy, Americanism, is the means to end all forms of racial supremacy. CRT proponents do this to transfer the guilt of one philosophy's advancement of policies by way of mob rule, and that creates a marketable package, which leads to the second tenet, which is interest convergence, what Dr. Bell, Professor Dr. Bell, Derek Bell, called this strategy an interest convergence. It gives the heirs of a philosophy of mob rule, majority rules, or democracy, which justify the enactment of policies that impacted minorities negatively, a way off the hook for their crimes. And so they're able to get support and a means to coalition build off of the past, anecdotal, or imaginary pain of minorities. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. So skipping to the 4th, because I've just did the first 2, The first one is that racism is ordinary, it's status quo, and it's white supremacy. And the second is that there's an interest convergence. You got to make it, there's got to be something in it for people, for white people to give some of their power over to you. Skipping to the fourth, counter storytelling. This is used to magnify the stories, experiences, narratives, and truths of what CRT proponents consider underprivileged communities, obviously made that way by white supremacy, and not by high tax, high crime, low employment opportunity communities, made that way by poor policies and economic experiments. They contend that schools are not neutral spaces that treat everyone justly. And they correlate graduation rates as indicative of a school curricula structured around mainstream white middle-class values. And it produces a widening of the racial achievement gap. I mean, it's really conjecture. It's all pure conjecture. Every tenet is essentially just criticism of the prevailing cultural values and efforts to move past racism, or even the efforts to equalize society. They just want to criticize it for a purpose. CRT folks go through great lengths denigrating most court cases, policies, and advancements of the past as purely beneficial to whites. Now, how is this being applied in K-12 schools, despite legislation forbidding it? Through teachers. Well, what I mean is teachers are getting trained to use this particular bent of ideology to inform how they relate to children. That curriculum, even the curriculums that they will choose for the children in the form of discipline employed to equalize the perceived social order in the classroom. CRT is an ideology that is taught to educators to help them engage students through its race-obsessed tenets. In South Carolina, CRT proponents are getting a little help, though, from the SEL development tools like Panorama. Panorama features racial equity development tools that surveys teachers and students along racial and cultural lines to determine the measure of equity and inclusion in their classrooms. Spearman has given districts the ability to build their SEL programs as they see fit, tailored to their communities, and in a June 2020 memo promoted Panorama survey to be used for that purpose. Again, teaching educators to help them engage students through its race-obsessed tenets. I believe that Panorama's racial equity tools are absolutely a backdoor for surveillance, data gathering, advancement, and implementation of the CRT pedagogy. And I want to know who's getting that information, and I want to know what they're doing with it. Even the SC for Ed teacher advocacy group has resources promoting outright advancement of racially charged works, like Democracy in Black, How Race Still Enslaves the American Soul, which is wholly and completely a work of partisan propaganda. I mean, you just read the description on Amazon, and you can superimpose the three tenets that I briefly described very easily.
Thank you so much. All right. Krista Sorrenti. I want to give it to him. They can give it to me.
Hopefully this is the last run here. The vast majority of the tools and resources embedded within CRT philosophy, though, veil it under mostly innocuous and wholesome topics. You have a program called Brain Pop, which I've been informed is available to all South Carolina students. It's rife with partisan concepts and narrativism. And even in the most subtle ways, give you an example, the thumbnail for the topic of Reconstruction and Social Studies section has a blue and red depiction of the United States of America. Blue is on top, red's on the bottom. Now, history demonstrates that at the time, the southern states were in fact Democrats. Right? Now, the colors depicting the two sides were likely of no consequence in the late 1800s. Fair enough? However, they do provoke the drawing of inferences today and advance a partisan narrative. Well, if I was in your positions, how do we respond? This is what I would do. If I was in your position, I would demand that any fruit of the CRT philosophy found in any form be wholly condemned, rejected by the board, and forbidden to be used by teachers or presented to students in the school district. I'm certain that parents in your district don't want resources born of the idea that the highly American values of colorblindness and meritocracy are just tools of preserving white supremacy. They likely also don't appreciate the advancement of ideas that create interest conversions established between CRT proponents and certain political philosophical positions whose mob rule philosophy has justified terrible evils in the name of democracy against minorities in the past by transferring their guilt onto America's systemic racism. We should advance the notion that America is a redemptive gift to the world. whose founding philosophy would end slavery and advance the rights of every minority to participate in the blessings of liberty. We should denounce and reject all forms of racial supremacy. If CRT was really interested in being critical of racial supremacy, then there will be tools addressing every form of racial supremacy. To the board members, do you approve of black supremacy? No, I'm sure you don't. How about Arab supremacy? All forms of racial supremacy are anathema, and that's the American ethos. The American form of government is not systemically racist or advancing white supremacy. It's been the greatest tool to advance freedom, liberty, and prosperity for any race who was blessed to conquer desert, air, and sea to become a United States citizen. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
God bless.
Ernest Floyd. Welcome.
How you all doing tonight?
Fine.
So basically, I just want to also kind of just touch on the whole CRT thing as well too, because I like to say something the Apostle Paul has said when he wrote to the church of Galatians. He pretty much had just told him, asked him, you were running a good race. Who hindered you from obeying the truth? That persuasion does not come from him who called you. And a little leaven the whole lump. My thing with CRT is that I know a lot of people have a lot of different definitions for it, but the thing about it is that it has a lot of tentacles as well too. I mean, it's like the small things that they teach that spread. So when Paul was talking about that whole, the leaven, the whole lump, it's the small teaching that starts and then it just spreads out of control. And now the one thing that I have seen that is taking place within our school district, it is something as far as even there was such a subject as Black Lives Matter, for the fact that the things that are being taught and pushed forth by and on our kids is really an alarming thing. Now, me personally, I teach my kids this one principle inside life is saying you look at every individual for who they are personally. You know, you don't sit there and follow the crowd. Even with everything going on, every time you hear about a white officer shooting a black guy, my response to him always is, you hit the brakes. Don't follow the crowd. Don't get caught in your emotion. Wait for time. You examine the stuff for yourself and see exactly what's going on. I also teach them, too, that if it does come to an issue that you are dealing with someone who you may feel that is treating you a certain way, you deal with that individual. I don't look at anybody in here and look at them any different than I look at my own self. I don't hold nothing against anybody. The things that are being taught to our kids slowly and surely, that's being introduced to them slowly, that's how it's going to start, and that's how it's also going to progress as well, too. What I'm asking y'all is to really just please put a stop to this right here and don't allow it to start, because once it starts, it's going to be one small thing that's going to lead to something else. Then once that is accomplished, it's going to lead to something else. We can put an end to this right here. I don't believe that this word is really of what is being portrayed right now. I believe inside in what God has given us all. He has given us all life. He has given us all the ability to make choices, but also with them ability as well too. We have to take that responsibility, teaching our kids as well too. My sons, most of his friends are white. It's no problem. They go out, they chill out together, they play basketball, they go to the mall, they have fun. But the things that are pushed upon them right now is that basically that they have to really just make it about a race issue. When all they do is play, they ignore race. That's all we have to do, is to stop this spread of this doctrine that's being pushed upon our children inside our schools. I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Pamela Goodwin. Godwin, thank you.
I was going to talk about CRT, but Zoe covered everything. It was awesome. I'm going to talk about masks and vaccines. And masks do not prevent COVID. Read the side of the box. Okay? Do your research. Read the side of the box. Masks are unhealthy. Most religious mask wearers have COVID right now. I know them, and they are sick, very sick. Hello? The vaccine isn't a real vaccine. I am so tired of the fear mongering. It has to stop. Mainstream media, doctors, offices, parents. It is wrong. This is wrong. Okay? It is a experimental drug. Yes, and the experiment is on you. It's on you. Oh, I have so much. I could be here all night, but I'm not going to. The vaccine has killed 45,000. Do your research. I'm going to tell you a story. I have a 20-year-old nephew who is in upstate South Carolina. For his job, they made him get the vaccine at 20. He woke up, a healthy 20-year-old boy, paralyzed from the waist down and blood clots throughout his body. Don't you tell me that the vaccine is good. It is an experimental drug, not approved by the FDA. And the CDC isn't even requiring their own employees to get it. Yes, I'm whispering like Biden. Oh my gosh. Oh, please educate yourselves outside of the Fauci and the establishment regime. It's all lies and propaganda. Mask and vaccine mandates take away our God-given rights. This is unethical and un-American, bottom line. If masks work, if the vaccine truly works, then why does everyone with the vaccine have COVID? And why are they spreading COVID? Oh, which they don't, by the way. The masks don't work. Neither does the vaccine. Why do others insist on others wearing masks and others getting a vaccine? If it really works, why do you care? Ask yourself that question. Why do you care? Governor McMaster expressed his desires in a letter to DHEC several weeks ago, stating that we are free. Do you even know what free means anymore? Free South Carolinians. Free to not wear masks. And I agree with him. Thank you.
Michael. Joshua Linsby, did I say it right?
Good evening, board and Dr. Ross. My name is Joshua Lazenby. It's okay, everyone gets it wrong my whole life.
We're going to get it right from now on.
Thank you.
No more.
I am a Spring Hill alumni from the class of 21. I just want to say, after seeing your presentation about how are the children, I'm very proud to still live in this district and have my siblings go here. I'm very pleased with what you all are doing. However, I do have a concern, question, I don't know how it would best be put. So how are the children? That is great, and the programs that I've seen discussed here are great, but from my perspective, they are touching on the personal, like each child personally. How is this child doing? How is their life at home? How are they performing in school? Are they being nice to others? Are others being nice to them? And I'm just wondering, are there any plans or something that I missed that would allow for the students to say how the students are as a whole? I don't like to touch on last year, but last year I do believe that maybe there was a highlighted deficit or spacing between the secondary level students and the board. Whether or not that is real or perceived, I'm sure we all saw it, regardless of how you feel about it. And I, for one, I want to see that deficit decreased. I want to see specifically more of the secondary students who have gotten into a better swing of who they are as individuals and a better grasp on the world around them, actually have an opportunity to work with those that are not so much above them, but the ones that are the decision makers for their schools, and that would be you all. And like I said, if there is already something in place, that's great, but if not, I would urge you to try, if at all possible, to implement something like that for the better of the district. I believe that it could only do good, with the guidance, of course, of you all and other adults in the district and community. And I hope you all have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Alan Wright.
First, I want to touch on the Stop It app. I believe this is a precursor to the social credit system that is actually used in China, and it tracks behaviors, and they are using our children to do it. I would be interested to know what you're going to be doing with this data and the IP addresses. So I think that's important to reference, and we need those answers. Second of all, I would like to address the quarantine policy. As you all know, I have reached out to you multiple times. This is a divisive policy. It treats the unvaxxed and the vaxxed differently. There is no science that supports this, period. Both can spread COVID. But what it does do is it discriminates, and it's a form of coercion, as a child who is unvaxxed may feel like they need to be vaxxed in order to get a lesser quarantine policy, or to not experience the learning loss that the vaxxed patients are getting. And I know that you guys have said that only the nurse will know, and that the nurses are making these calls, and I personally feel like we should not be putting this on our nurses. They are not medical doctors. They should not be saying how long our children quarantine. It's unacceptable. You need to do better. Come back again. It needs to be an equal policy across the board so that our children know that they are equal. Otherwise, we have other problems. So that's where I am with the quarantine policy. And it's also not a medical choice freedom to have to prove a vaccination status or use an antigen test. A medical choice freedom means being able to not consent without consequence. So you're not giving us that. You're not giving us choices. It's an illusion of choice. It's your choice and what you are willing to accept. It is not a choice of ours. The capacity, again, there's really no science for that. Outdoor, indoor. Also, ESSER funds, since we're talking about that. I have requested all the applications for the ESSER funds because I believe that there are divisive topics within these ESSER funds and that we are making concessions to. Speaking of critical race theory, speaking of, what else is in there? Hold on, I know. Vaccines, social and emotional learning. So I think it is rooted with divisive requirements, and we need to do better at reviewing these. So I would like to see all of it. So if we need to FOIA that, we will. I also have some opt-out forms for any parents who do not want their children to be included in curriculum that includes sexuality, CRT, social and emotional learning, and equity and equality. You have the right to opt out.
Time is up. Thank you. Katie Millian.
Hi. It's kind of hard to follow all those people. They said everything I wanted to say. So I just want to say, I know you guys don't hear it enough, but I thank God for you guys. I think you guys are doing a great job. I'm sorry, I get emotional when I talk. I just want to say I've seen school boards across the country, and they are not like this. I mean, I understand we all have issues we bring to you. You listen to us. I was one of the ones who fought against the masks in May. You all know I emailed you. As you can hear, they don't work. I want to know, are our kids being given PCR tests at school? I don't want my kid PCR tested. I think they're potentially dangerous things on the PCR test that they're dipped in, ethylene oxide, I believe it's called, which causes cancer. I want to know if the kids are going to be vaccinated or given the option to be vaccinated in school, because I've seen that age 16 can consent to vaccines without their parent permission in South Carolina, so I'd like to know that. You asked about kids. I felt so bad about those little girls because I just wanted to give them a hug. Like, I feel so bad for them. They are so scared. There's so much fear in this community. The media just spreads it. It's ridiculous. Turn the media off. Do your own research. We have to do what the schools taught us and research on our own. We can't just blindly trust what people tell us anymore. I think this year showed us that. I've done my own research. I don't trust the VAERS. I think VAERS is wrong. I think many more people died and have been injured by these vaccines. Vaccine is your choice, but I'm not going to discriminate because you get a vaccine. That's your choice. But we are seeing a huge push for mandatory vaccines, and it's wrong. We should have choices. We live in America. We should have freedoms. I've been told we don't have freedom anymore in America, and I try to have hope that we do, but it's going away fast. So we have to unite as Americans, a community. You can't turn on your neighbor. You love your neighbor. If they start saying, tell someone if they're not, tell on the unvaxxed people, because I've seen that. There's a website. It says tell on the unvaxxed. There's a website to report unvaxxed people. Sounds like a little bit like the 30s and 40s to me. Unfortunately, I've seen where they've started to prepare for some sort of FEMA situation. Walmarts have been shut down for cleaning. Why? I'm asking these questions because we need to know about these things. The media is not telling us these things. And I know the children think this is political, but they've brought this, this has all been brought to us. It's not about school anymore. Everybody's just talking about these crazy things, okay? Let's talk about school. The kids need to not be in fear. Trust in God. He put us here for a reason. If I don't wake up tomorrow, then guess what? I didn't die of COVID. I died because it was my time. Stop scaring the kids.
Thank you. Kim Murphy. Pass. And Deanna Burley.
I also pass.
Okay. So that would conclude our public participation. And we thank you all for those. And if there were questions, Dr. Ross and we have made notes, and so we can get those to you.